Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to the Chicago Minute, Chicago's favorite radio station. As always, this is Sam Buisman, turning the turntables for the Chicago Minute, and with me is our not-so-Joe, Joey Lochner. And do we have a treat for you tonight, folks?
Yes, sirree. A straight ace is story packed with Karen iron, spitting lead, and a plenty of greenbacks.
Now, don't blow your wig, Joey, but the most interesting piece of our story tonight is that it comes straight from the streets of our very own city, a true tale of Chicago.
You heard it, folks. You're about to get the lowdown on one of the most famous G-men in Chicago, maybe even the entire United States. We got a tale about Eliot Ness and his gangster-battling gang the Untouchables.
That's right, the story of the legendary agents brought to the radio for the very first time. So sit back, relax, turn up your radios, and keep it dialed to the Chicago Minute for the tale of Eliot Ness and the Untouchables.
Dateline, 1927. Eliot Ness heads to the Bureau of Investigation, which we know now as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, for his final job interview. We join our hero now. Thank you for coming in today, sir. Our schedule has been a little bit tight. Now, for security reasons, we'll be recording this interview. So if you could just state your name and the occupation you are hoping to achieve.
My name is Ness, Eliot Ness, and I'm applying to hopefully assume a job within the United States Treasury Department.
Excellent, excellent. What led you to pursuing a job in law enforcement, Mr. Ness?
Well, I've always been quite interested in the craft. I attended the University of Chicago, where I got my economics degree in 1925, but then I returned to the University of Chicago to get my master's in criminology in 1926. My brother-in-law, Alexander Jamie, recommended to me that I join up with the Bureau.
Yes. And your transcript from the university shows us that you were no scrub. How old are you, Mr. Ness?
24.
Excellent. Hiring criteria is a little more strict than it is at the beginning of the decade. After J. Edgar Hoover became a director in 1924, he established much more difficult criteria that needs to be met to be hired. And he's also established the practice of background checking our potential employees. But it seems you met the criteria and your background check checks out.
Quite excellent.
Another thing that J. Hoover has brought to the Bureau are these rigorous training practices for agents. We need to know that you would be willing to complete the necessary training if you were to be hired.
Of course, sir. I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations, Ness. It seems like you have a spot within the Bureau of Investigation. You'll be working with the 300 men in the Chicago Prohibition Department to try and keep our city dry.
Ah, that is just snazzy.
Your training starts Monday, Ness. Prove to us that this wasn't a Brody. Dateline, 1928. Our hero Eliot Ness has completed his training and is now an established agent with the Chicago Prohibition Bureau. President Herbert Hoover has just won the 31st presidential election with the promise to crack down on organized crime. We rejoin our hero in a meeting with the United States Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon.
Nice meeting with you again, Mr. Ness. As always, the pleasure is all mine, Mr. Mellon. Please, call me Andrew. Anyway, I'm sure you're wondering just why I brought you in here, Mr. Ness. Well, naturally. Well, as you know, Herbert Hoover was just elected president, and you won't believe it, but the man himself wired me a telegram just the other day. How keen. How keen indeed, Mr. Ness. Let me give you the rundown of what our president said. He's charging me personally with taking down no other than the infamous Al Capone. Al Capone. That's right, Mr. Ness. The President of the United States has charged me personally with locking up that scum in the big house. So, how are you going after him? Well, I'm glad you inquired, Mr. Ness. We're trying to get dirt on Capone in two areas. First, his violation of the Volstead Act, and second, tax evasion. If we can prove that he's brewing or transporting any hooch or rat gut, we can nail him for the Volstead Act. Or, if we can prove that he ain't been filing taxes on his liquor profits, we can lock him up for tax evasion. And I'm tasking you, Mr. Ness, with assembling a team and completing the former. Murder! You can't be serious. I am, Mr. Ness. Handpick whatever agents you need and target Capone's breweries and supply lines. Take them down and find whatever evidence you can to give us the bulge on Capone so we can charge him with Volstead Act violations. I've got another team working on the in-cam charges already. Well, I'm honored to be chosen for this position, Mr. Mellon. I'll get on it right away. You won't be disappointed, Mr. Mellon.
Eliot Ness toiled over the records of his potential agents for hours. He carefully examined each and every record to weed out which flatfoots in the Bureau of Investigation were corrupted or at risk of becoming so. Ness started with 50 options for his agents, eventually whittling them down to 9. We join Eliot Ness now, addressing his team of 9 for the first time.
You are the 9 men that I choose for this crew, and I expect the most from all of you. I expect you to be very good at the things that you say you're good at, because we are going after public enemy number 1, Al Capone. We are going to need all of your skills to take him down. I'm talking wiretapping, gruesome gunfights, and fast driving. Bill Gardner, you are here for your brilliant undercover work. Lyle Chapman and Mike King, you two are here because you're a tactician and an investigator respectively. Barney Clunan and Martin Lahart, you are here because you're both very strong and you know how to knock some heads if we need to. Thomas Friel, you're here because you are a dead shot with a Tommy gun. Joe Leeson, you are here for your driving abilities. Robski, you have a very important ability. You are here to tap Capone's phones so we can hear all of the calls going in and out of his house. And last but not least, Sam Seeger. You are a prison employee, so you must be good with a gun.
With the crew assembled, Ness and company set out to put a thorn in the side of notorious gangster Al Capone. The crew immediately got to wiretapping rooms and telephones belonging to mobsters and hoping to catch them in the act. We joined the crew 1 month after their formation as they monitor their wiretappings.
Yes, I've got something.
What is it, Robski?
This teleline we've tapped. Something's coming through.
Well, turn up the volume, Robski. Let us hear.
You've got it, Ness. And we're moving the booze tomorrow. The wiretapping's working.
We've got them now. Let's listen. He's discussing the hooch.
Yeah, boss says to drop the stuff off at 59 Christie Street. That's where we'll store the booze till we sell it to the speakeasies. We'll make the drop tomorrow night at around 9. Then keep it there until we find a buyer. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds like a plan, Vinny. I'll be waiting at Christie.
Excellent. Boss will be thrilled. Keep a head up, Charlie.
Will do.
We've got them for sure. 59 Christie Street at 9 tomorrow.
We'll raid the brewery as soon as the gangsters unload the brew. That way we can catch as many of them in the act as we can. I'll rally up the rest of the crew and give them the mission.
Ness and his team waited until the next night to raid the brewery. The men staked out the drop site, waiting for the truck to pull in with the brew. At 9:15, a large truck pulled up to the back of the building. It was go time for Ness and his team.
Looks like the truck's here, boss.
Right you are, Rodsky. Lahart and Friel, you two are the muscle of our team, so here's the plan. We'll go in through the side door, and while they're still unloading the hooch, kick it down, pistols in hand, and get them to surrender. Once it's clear, we'll make arrests and clean the place of all the booze.
You got it, boss.
What if they don't surrender, boss? Then, Friel, things might get messy. But I picked you two for the team because you could handle yourselves in a fight, so I expect that we'll take them out, one way or another. Alrighty, boss. Let's get it done. Alright, scumbags. Hands where I can see 'em. You're under arrest.
It's the coppers. How'd they know we were shipping the brew?
The man said heads up. You're all under arrest for violation of Section 1 of the Volstead Act, which prohibits the distribution and creation of alcohol.
Shoot. There ain't no use in fighting. I surrender.
I surrender.
I surrender.
Looks like we caught them red-handed. Now, let's get on with destroying this rot gut.
Ness and his crew worked all night to destroy the main barrels of illegal alcohol that would have otherwise flooded the streets of Chicago. The team worked to seize 19 distilleries and 6 breweries within only 6 months. The press was eating up the story of these heroic agents fighting crime, and Eliot Ness's name became public, for better or for worse. We rejoin our hero at this time in 1929 as he takes a leisurely stroll down the streets of Chicago.
What a beautiful day it is today.
Afternoon, Mr. Ness.
Oh, good afternoon, sir. I don't believe we've met. Your name is...
Oh, my name isn't important, Mr. Ness, but you're very familiar with my employer. You've been a rather annoying thorn in his side recently.
I think I understand what you mean.
Yes, if my rough calculations are correct, you destroyed about a cool 1,000,000 green bags worth of booze, and that's a lot of hooch. But my employer still has plenty of cabbage in his pocket, if you know what I mean.
I think I see where you're going with this.
So here's the deal, Mr. Ness. Sure, you've destroyed around $1 million worth of our operations, but my employer holds around $74 million worth of operations. And if you quit with your little interference of our craft, there's a cool $2,000 in it for you immediately.
And for each week you refrain from messing with our operations, another $2,000 will find their way to you.
Well, sir, you make an interesting offer, and it's very inducing indeed.
So do we have a deal?
Well, no.
No!
I'm unfortunately going to have to turn you down, good sir. My team's policy is simple. We don't take bribes. Unfortunately, I think my crew and I are going to continue to be a thorn in your boss's side for a long time.
I don't think you understand the weight of this issue, Mr. Ness. My employer has plans to deal with you if this bribe doesn't work. And it's quite a nasty plan.
Well, if that's the way it has to be, then so be it. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Sir, I was on quite a lovely stroll before you came along to interrupt me.
You'll be wishing you decided differently, Ness. I guarantee it. Ness went straight to the press with the story of the failed bribe. The press ate up the story, leading to the group being nicknamed the Untouchables for their purity and devotion. But because the bribe failed, Al Capone put a hit on Eliot Ness and the members of his team. We rejoin Eliot Ness in his uptown apartment as he believes he is alone.
Well, it's getting late. I better make myself some dinner. What was that?
You've been a problem for Mr. Capone for too long, Mr. Ness, and he's going to pay me a pretty penny for solving that problem.
Got him. I got him.
Oh, God.
I got him. Phew. That was a close one. I didn't think that Al Capone would make good on his threats of coming after me. I'll have to be more careful and, more importantly, warn the team.
Capone sent multiple assassins after Ness. Fortunately, none of them were a match for Eliot Ness, but his close friend Frank Bastille was killed by one of Capone's assassins. This did not deter the Untouchables from their mission. They kept working to end the criminal reign of Al Capone, which brings us to where we join our heroes next on October 17th of 1931.
Boss, did you hear?
What is it, Rodsky?
It's all over the papers. Capone was convicted of tax evasion. He's going to prison for 11 years. It's all over. We did it.
Let me see that newspaper, Rodsky. By God, you're right. Charged with 22 counts of tax evasion, convicted of 5, charged with 2,000 charges of violations of the Volstead Act, convicted of none. That is strange.
What's the matter, boss?
Well, Rodsky, we were working and collecting evidence to convict Capone of the Volstead Act violations, but here it states he's only going to prison for tax evasion charges. If this is true, then unfortunately our evidence didn't do much to convict Capone.
Well, I guess it didn't think about it anyway.
Looky here, this article gives all the credit to the IRS and some of their agents.
Huh. Well, that's rather unfortunate, but one way or another, we did seriously injure his operations, which we raided a lot of breweries together, Ness.
Well, you're right about that, Rodsky. Ness, have you heard the news? Andrew Mellon, nice to see you. And, of course, Capone is just where he deserves to be, in the Hooskow. Well, Ness, one way or another, I think you and your team of the Untouchables had a lot to do with bringing down Mr. Capone. Well, thank you, Mr. Mellon. That means a lot to me. Please, call me Andrew. You're very welcome, Ness. And to honor your achievements, I'm promoting you to Chief Investigator of the Prohibition Bureau for Chicago. Really? Me? Golly gee, what an honor. I promise I'll continue to work and give my best to enforce the law in this beautiful city, or my name isn't Eliot Ness.
Seemed like a happy ending was in order for Ness and the Untouchables, and that is almost what happened. Ness continued to work to enforce Prohibition until its end in 1933. Even after Prohibition, Ness worked to end production of illegal alcohol, especially moonshine. Ness retired to live peacefully with his wife, and ironically, became an alcoholic. He died at age 54 of a heart attack on May 16, 1957. The rest of the Untouchables eventually left the Bureau to lead normal, peaceful lives. So concludes the end of the aspiring tale of Eliot Ness and the Untouchables, a tale of good and evil, of purity and corruption, and of cops and gangsters. A tale worthy of existing upon the silver screen or in the pages of a novel.
but instead came through the streets of our own Chicago.